The isolation experiment Dr. Emma Taylor, a renowned psychologist, had always been fascinated by the human mind's ability to withstand isolation. She hypothesized that, with the right conditions, a person could survive for an extended period without any human interaction. To test her theory, Emma designed an experiment. She would recruit a participant, place them in a state-of-the-art isolation chamber, and monitor their mental and physical health for 6 months. The participant, a young man named Jack, was eager to earn the generous stipend offered for the experiment. He was screened for any mental health issues and deemed fit for the study. The isolation chamber, located in an abandoned research facility on the outskirts of town, was designed to be self-sustaining. It had its own air supply, food, water, and waste management systems. The only contact Jack would have with the outside world was through a video feed, where Emma would check in on him regularly. As the experiment began, Jack settled into a routine. He spent his days reading, exercising, and watching movies. Emma monitored his progress, taking note of any changes in his behavior or mental state. However, as the weeks went by, Emma started to notice strange occurrences. Jack would report hearing whispers in the night, and the video feed would sometimes flicker with an otherworldly static. Emma dismissed these incidents as side effects of isolation, but she couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. One night, Emma received a distress call from Jack. He was frantic, claiming that someone, or something, was in the chamber with him. Emma rushed to the facility, but when she arrived, she found nothing out of the ordinary. Jack was alone in the chamber, shaken but unharmed. As the experiment continued, the strange occurrences escalated. Jack reported finding strange symbols etched into the walls, and the video feed began to malfunction more frequently. Emma realized that Jack's isolation was having an unexpected effect. It was awakening a malevolent presence in the chamber. Desperate to save Jack, Emma decided to terminate the experiment and release him from the chamber. But as she entered the facility, she found that the doors were sealed shut, trapping her inside. The video feed flickered to life, showing Jack's face twisted in a macabre grin. "I'm not alone," he whispered, before the feed went black. Emma was left alone in the darkness, surrounded by an unseen presence that seemed to be closing in around her. And then, the lights went out, when the facility was finally breached. Emma was found catatonic, her mind shattered by the horror she experienced in those final moments. The isolation chamber was left abandoned, a haunted monument to the terror that lurked within its walls. But some say that, on certain nights, when the moon is full and the wind is just right, you can still hear Jack's whispers echoing through the chamber's empty corridors. The dark highway. It was a stormy night, and Sarah was driving home from a late-night shift at the hospital. She had worked as a nurse for 5 years and was no stranger to the long, winding roads that connected the hospital to her small town. As she drove, the storm grew more intense. The wind howled, and the rain pounded against her windshield. Sarah slowed down, her heart racing with every flash of lightning. Suddenly, her GPS led her down a dark, deserted highway. The road was narrow and winding, with dense woods on either side. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she realized she was completely alone. As she drove, the storm seemed to grow more intense. The wind buffeted her car, and the rain reduced visibility to almost zero. Sarah slowed down to a crawl, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. And then she saw it. A figure, standing in the middle of the road. Tall, imposing, and completely still. Sarah slammed on the brakes, her heart racing. The figure didn't move, didn't react. It just stood there, watching her. As she sat there, frozen with fear, Sarah realized that the figure was not alone. There were others, standing just beyond the tree lane. Watching her, Sarah knew she had to get out of there. She put the car in reverse and backed away slowly, her eyes fixed on the figures. But as she turned to leave, she heard a voice. Low, raspy, and unmistakable. "You shouldn't have come here." Sarah spun around, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to come from all around her, echoing off the trees. She floored it, speeding away from the deserted highway as fast as she could. But as she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw the figures standing in the road, watching her leave, and then they vanished. Sarah didn't stop driving until she was back in the safety of her own home. She locked the doors, closed the curtains, and tried to calm her racing heart. But as she sat there, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that the figures from the highway were still out there, waiting for her. And then the lights went out. When the police found Sarah's car the next morning, it was abandoned on the side of the road. The engine was still running, the headlights still shining, but Sarah was never seen again. Some say that on stormy nights, you can still see Sarah's car driving down that deserted highway, the figures watching from the trees. Others say that if you're driving down that highway and you see a car with a single occupant, don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep driving. Because on that dark highway, you're not alone. And if you're not careful, you might just become the latest victim of